Hello, everybody. DVZ Assets here, of course. Sorry, I'm thinking of somebody else right now. Welcome to another animation analysis video, everybody. Today, I figured in honor of the release of Dragon Ball Superhero, we are going to be taking a look at everybody's GOAT unit. Of course, the best unit in the game has been memed to high heck. I've seen enough. TEQ Ultimate Gohan is better. We are going to be taking a look at his animations today. Obviously, the only superhero character we have right now is the SSR Gohan, and that would literally have to be YouTube short because that's like a 5-second essay, and I thought about doing that. But I did want to do a bigger video in honor of the release of Superhero, and obviously Ultimate Gohan is a prominent form in the movie, so we're going to take a look at his animations here today. Excuse me, just chugged down an apple, so forgive me if I'm burping a little bit. We do have these guys in here as well, and I suppose that we will take a look at their animations as well, just because they're in the video, and when else would I ever take a look at these animations, right? They are pretty cool, by the way. I do quite like these, especially for the time, and obviously just being a like featured banner unit on Gohan's banner. These guys' essays are actually pretty good. You know, again, with these units, they don't put as much crazy stuff into them. Now, I do want to say, before we get into it and we watch this one time through, before we go into the analysis, keep in mind, right, this unit was released in JP on July 31st, 2020. So, of course, like I always say, when we take a look at older units, I don't like to judge them the same as brand new units, because obviously the standard of the quality of super attacks has changed from 2 years ago to now, right? We're almost approaching 2 years that this guy has been released, which is pretty crazy. But so keep that in mind. I'm going to be a little bit less hard on this unit, but you know, I'm also going to still analyze what we got going on here. So anyway, with that in mind, let's go ahead and take a look at his essay. This one is very simple, which, I mean, granted, they do focus more on the transformations, I feel like, but this is a very short essay, even though it is very cool, for the essay that you will be seeing more often than not, right? Because obviously, you know, you have them untransformed more than you have them transformed. So now we have the transformation, I guess you would technically call it, even though I think he's still technically like ultimate throughout the card in terms of like not the name of the card, but like how he looks, right? This is a pretty cool essay. I have always liked this essay. I do have some problems with it before even like getting into this video and analyzing it. I almost wish that this guy was released like in the modern day, or more so like more recently, because I think that they could have done a lot crazier of a job and done even better than what we got already. But let's go ahead and go into analysis mode here. So we are going to hit the 0.2 times 2.5, excuse me, times speed. We're going to take a look at these guys. Now, these guys I'm going to be even less critical of, because obviously they are a unfeatured banner unit. But it is cool that what they do is they incorporate some shots that aren't as crazy, like this, right? Where they just use their sprites, basically. And they still do some basic attacks. This is pretty cool. With Kibito, obviously, sort of like containing Majin Buu with the electricity here, and then throwing him to the side. And we obviously have Supreme Kai teleport back in and give Buu the work here. Now, this is pretty cool. This is, like I said, right? They're doing some stuff that isn't as crazy and is sort of a little bit far away, because again, keep in mind, this isn't a Dokkan Fest unit, and it's from 2020, but they still do... Sorry, the speaker in my bedroom just started playing music out of nowhere. That was so strange. Anyway, I like that they do this, where they sort of entwine more simple animations, and then to make the essay really pop, they add in stuff like this, where we have Supreme Kai bring his hands together and form a Ki Blast to blast away Majin Buu here. This is a really cool key effect, by the way, with this sort of like... Because obviously, since it hasn't gone through him, it's just making contact, and the energy is sort of flying back. So, of course, it's really close up to him. I think that that is a very neat detail. As well, I will say, they don't animate his hands coming forward a whole lot, But I feel like this is a perfect example, and I didn't even notice the fade when I saw that in motion, so they did a pretty good job this time. But obviously, for shots like this, especially in anime, when characters are like bringing their hands together quickly, typically it's like a and then they're together, right? So you're not really seeing all the in-between movement. So I honestly think that this is pretty good. We do have a little bit as well here, the bang moving, and obviously Supreme Kai's arms and I guess his hands moving back as well are a little bit animated too, which is just a nice touch, because frankly, you know, they could have had him, once he brought his hands together, not have any movement at all, and even maybe not even had the bang move. But I think that this is all just a nice touch to make this essay feel a little bit more lifelike with just this simple close-up shot. Very cool stuff here. So obviously we have him fire the ball at Boo, and then of course we have the explosion effect. I will say this explosion effect is kind of lackluster, but again, this is a unfeatured banner unit, and this is more of like a generic Dokkan explosion anyway, which again, I think it's fine for a unfeatured featured banner unit from 2020, right? Alright, so now we go into their transformation. By the way, gotta say, while this is happening, thank you so much to DBZ World for uploading this, because I did not have uploaded this on my channel, so we're using his video, so thank you. The link will be in the description if you'd like to check it out. However, this is a very cool essay. Obviously we have them on their planet first of all, and we just have a short animation of them removing the earrings, which actually looks really smooth. Like literally, I have no nitpicks with this. They literally just take the earring off. They're very close up. They look shocked, right? I think that the assets look very nice, right? It's a very clean animation of both of them taking the earring off their ear, right? It's obviously then fused together. Very, very good, right? Definitely no complaints from me. I think it's very cool. Again, this is another example of using some more high quality scenes like this, right? And you have these very nice looking shots of them sliding together before they bop and then they fuse together. And even, wow, look at the fusion animation. So this part looks really good, right? And you can see too, even on them, there is a little bit of minimal movement, right? It's kind of hard to see, especially when they're moving, right? But as you can see, right, both of them, yeah, Supreme Kai too, right? His head and his arms is moving a little bit too when this is happening. So it's cool that they actually put in a tiny bit of, you know, animation into that. So then they bop forward, and this is actually a really cool light effect where they sort of, you know, morph together with the different lighting effects, right, representing this. And the background looks stellar as well. I think they did a really good job with that. Very cool. And the transition to white as well is nice. This is also super funny. Even though he's literally just standing there for the end of the animation, right? I think they sort of spent the animation budget for this section in the beginning, which is okay, because I think this is just fine, right? With having him go, huh? Basically. Alright, so then we have his super attack. I like this part where he points forward in the beginning. I will say, maybe I wish there was a little bit more animation in between, like him whipping his hand forward, because it is quite literally like one frame, and I think maybe they thought that like you wouldn't see it because of the white, but it's still faded enough by that point. And I think what's more jarring for me is his arm over here instantly goes down, and his head and hair and the top half of his body just gets like instantly smaller, while the bottom of his body doesn't really change. There's a little animation on like his fabric in the front here, but it just looks like the top half of his body grew smaller, which is really weird. That is cool though. They animated the hair moving a little bit, which is very nice. Alright, so we transition to the card art. I love this card art, by the way. It's so goofy. But yeah, we transition into the same attack from before, but obviously with a different sprite. Obviously here too, there is a just jarring change real quick. You can see the fade even in full motion. But again, it's like not the worst, because obviously, you know, not only was most of the budget for this guy in the beginning, you get the chuck away. I believe that after this there's a section that looks really nice. So obviously we have the electricity buildup on the sprite. This almost looks like Vegeta's attack. This reminds me of the SDBH Vegeta. And then he launches it forward. Okay, so there isn't a part after this. Interesting. I guess they just count the beginning as the sort of stellar part of this. So yeah, nothing crazy for the transformation, which is kind of funny that it's almost like the opposite, I feel like, for this guy. It's almost like they did more for the beginning, right? Even though I guess it was just like this one shot of Supreme Kai, really, and then the transformation animation was really where this guy kind of stands out in his animations, right? But it is kind of funny that for this guy, it was literally just the beginning and then basically the usage of sprites all throughout. So all in all for this guy, I definitely think that they could have done more for the transformation animation, or transformation super, I guess I should say, because the transformation animation is the part that's really good. But overall, pretty decent. And again, he is an unfeatured banner unit, so I'm not going to be too hard on the man. All right, let's get into it here. We are now arriving at the star of today's video, the TEQ Ultimate Gohan. This guy is pretty cool. So first of all, I love this sword part in the beginning. This is probably my favorite part of the first super attack that he has, right? Literally the way that they make this look like it's, you know, an illusion of like you're seeing multiple swords even though it's just one. You know, like when he throws something really fast and you see it spinning, it looks like there's multiple of one if it's like a stick or something. They literally just put multiple swords and just spun them around and like layered them over, right? And put the motion lines obviously as well, which is so funny that that's the way that they did it, but it looks really good. Like this is literally my favorite part of this essay. It looks very, very nice. We have an instant cut as well to some anime motion lines, right? Representing it falling down. And then obviously we have Gohan grab the sword here, which this part looks pretty good. I like that they even animate his arm a little bit recoiling with obviously catching it, which is also a very nice touch. And then of course we zoom out. Why does that asset get so low quality? I'm assuming what this is the arm asset is super high quality because they know that you're going to see it from, you know, like close up. And then they go to a asset that's a lot smaller because then, you know, you see it like this, right? And obviously it looks good from this far away, but you know, when you're seeing it this close up to the camera, it looks mad stinky. But unless they like just went frame by frame on this, obviously that's just the way that they got to do it. I will say too, I definitely like the motion line sort of fading away into the background here. I think that's a very nice touch. And obviously you do have Gohan's arm also moving a little bit to give this animation a little bit more life too, which is very nice. We now cut to the card art, which is so funny because like I don't even think this pose appears, and it's kind of funny to me that as well they chose this art for him when this whole super attack he uses the sword. I don't know, I just think that that's kind of funny. But anyway, we have the card art go into white and a cut to Gohan slashing forward. Sorry, Goku. I will say this part is pretty cool. I'm not sure how I feel about Gohan's face in some of the shots in here. Like, this is okay. Again, I kind of wish there was more animation in between a lot of these frames as well. Like this to this, I'm just like, Like, I could see the sword maybe crank him back real quick, but like the rest of his body should definitely have a little bit more movement. Then they slide the PNG forward and transition into the sword slash. Again, I wish there was definitely a little bit more between this, but again, it's an older essay, so you know I'm not going to be too unforgiving with it, right? We have this slash, which is pretty cool. We have the PNG just kind of move forward. Again, I feel like Gohan's face looks a little bit weird here, but I don't know. Maybe it's just me. But obviously with this yellow slash, right, it is just kind of zooming in on it because you can see it's sort of the same indent there. But a cool part about this, right, is that they sort of use the yellow slash to emphasize the sword cuts, quote unquote, right, with obviously the yellow flashes in the dark, which I think is really cool to do for like sword slashes, right? They do that with a couple of Trunks units as well. So this is pretty neat, I will say. Even though this just looks like a normal sprite and a normal PNG, you can see right there is a little bit of movement on this guy, which means that this is actually multiple assets that they have put together to give a little bit of movement to even this just like far away sprite of Gohan, which is really cool. You can even see the sword moving a little bit. It's hard to kind of tell because obviously the screen is shaking, but I like the dust effect as well. That's also a nice way to emphasize that, you know, the sword slashes were impactful. We obviously have this crazy zoom in as well, you know, as the enemy sprite is sitting there damaged. I really wish too, like with this part, I think it looks good from Gohan's perspective. But again, if the sprites looked better, I feel like this would look a lot better and make a lot more sense. Because this is the only sprite that they have with a character going like, you know, that's like fitting enough for this scene. But it looks so awkward because this sprite almost looks like Goku should be flying back into some rocks or something like that. Like if he's just standing there, you know, they should have him like clutching himself or something. But obviously since the sprites are limited, you know, that's what we end up with. This shot is really nice, I will say. They definitely did a very good job with this. Again, I like the consistency of keeping the dust in the shot, right? Because it makes you feel like you're still in the same environment, right? This is cool where we have Gohan lift up the sword, and then the way that they do this is that they cut to the sword. So, you know, it's not like showing the whole thing of Gohan raising it up. But it's cool that with this cut, they sort of use that to divert your attention and kind of imply movement here, because obviously, you know, they could have had him wind up all the way, right, like in the animation, from going from this pose to the pose that he takes where he is basically holding the sword like a baseball bat, right? But it's cool because obviously they imply that all of that has taken place while you're just watching the sword rise. And it's also cool that it kind of looks like it cut the dust here as well. I don't know if that's what they were intending on, because there's not like a crazy slash here, but I mean, that is a nice little emphasis so your eyes kind of keep with the sword. Very, very cool. But yeah, obviously we have the wind up. This is also another really nice looking part of the super attack for sure. This part looks super sick. I really, really like this part. I wish that they didn't do the fade for this. This is obviously Gohan like twisting his wrist, right? So then obviously the sort of gleam from the light around him is on the edge of the sword, but that's okay. It's not super crazy, like noticeable in the actual animation. It is kind of noticeable, but it's not the worst for sure. This is also a decent cut, right? Normally I would say that I think that there should be more frames in between here, but honestly, with how he's posed and then what they cut to, I think it's a decent cut right there. I like the detail of his bang moving, by the way, even though this is just sort of like a PNG sliding. You know, it is very nice that they include this bang. Alright, so this part is really interesting to me because you have a lot of different assets, and I don't want to say like a lot of different art styles here, but it kind of feels like that, right? So first of all, the orange in the background looks nice with the colors, but we go from this to, let me get the frames here. We go from this sort of style with these a little bit thicker, darker lines, right, to a little bit thinner lines, and this honestly looks exactly like the anime to me anyway. I feel like this expression for Gohan is literally perfect. Maybe his mouth could be a little bit changed, but the eyes look perfect. And then, as he's swinging the sword, we transition to this clearly like lower quality asset than this, right? And almost like a different shading style and even like a different art style, sort of, right? Like it's a lot more akin to this, but even this feels a lot more like defined, right? It's like it almost feels like it's going from comic book to manga to like comic strip with the last one, right? We go from comic to manga to comic strip. I don't know. That's kind of like the vibe that I get from these, but I kind of just wish that they would have kept with one of these styles so it'd stay a little bit more consistent, right? I want to see actually how noticeable is this in full-time speed. Let me see. I'm curious. So he swings the sword. Yeah, okay, that's pretty noticeable. Even in the full-time speed, it is literally like 1, 2, 3 for him swinging the sword. Yeah, okay. I just wanted to make sure before I went in on that, you know. Yeah, I definitely think that that is not the greatest for sure. That being said, though, I definitely think that at least they did a good job animating the sword here. You have that little bit of the gleam on this middle section of Gohan here, right? Which is kind of interesting because before it was coming from the back, and the background still looks the same, but I don't know how lighting on swords works, I suppose. But then obviously we have this section here, and I will say, even though this is just a PNG sliding, right, I like that they make the sword sort of bent to imply that, you know, he's swinging it really hard, and the metal is sort of like moving to like the way that he's swinging it. I think that's a cool little detail. So we have Goku going, ah, here, and obviously we do this cool lighting effect here. We have the silhouette of Goku sort of take this slash in the white light, which is really cool, right? We have the black transition to the white with the follow-through. Very, very nice. I like when they do this. And thank you for fading to white and not just cutting. It always looks a lot better when they do that. We have the yellow slash remain on screen with the dust sort of flying by. And I think the dust effects here look really nice. Obviously, this also, too, like, heavily implies how hard he swung that sword with all the dust and rocks and debris moving. Very, very cool. Definitely like that a lot. And then we have this very nice zoomed in shot of Gohan here where his bang is basically just going crazy. His bang almost looks a little bit too long in this shot. Maybe that's just me. Maybe I haven't seen this scene in a while, but I definitely feel like that his bang is a little bit too long here. It's also kind of funny that they have a little extra strand of hair here. Maybe I just don't remember that from the anime, but I feel like that wasn't there. But you can correct me in the comments on that for sure. But this is definitely a decent shot, even though it is just like a solid PNG. Obviously, Gohan's sort of like watching the results of his work, I guess you could say, right? Alright, so now we move on to the transformation sequence. And I will say, before we even get into this mainly, I really like the movement they have all around on this. Obviously, we have the fabric on the bottom moving. His hair is fully moving. The bang is moving. Even the shoulder pieces are moving on the outfit, right? The only thing that would really even you could else do would maybe be like his collar and his sleeves. And his sleeves look pretty tight on his muscles. So I don't know if those would necessarily be moving. But I like that they have this yellow aura around him already, right? So that when the yellow fades in, it not only feels a little bit more natural, but it just looks really nice, right? This yellow background is definitely very cool. The Pataras are moving as well. I actually didn't even know that. This section is really cool with the rocks like smashing away, with Gohan powering up, and then the dust covering the screen. This is really cool, I will say. Really, really like this. And I love the aura as well. The look of the aura looks fantastic with the little electricity shooting out of it too. Very, very cool. I will say it is a little bit jarring going from this bright yellow to like this very dark scene and then going right to like back to the bright colors on screen, but I don't think it's too bad, right? Because obviously, you know, that's how the moment is. But anyway, so we have everybody sort of standing there watching Gohan. I like the smoke effect, even though this is basically just like a snapshot, right? The smoke effect obviously is sort of like giving you the illusion of, you know, he just finished powering up. We have the cape and his hair still moving a little bit with the nice smoke effects in the background. I like also too the little like zoom up that they did at the beginning of this too. Just a nice way to sort of give this a little bit more, right? Because they could have just had him standing there, but instead they have this little like whoop, which I think is pretty cool little touch too. Alright, so moving on to the next section here, we have both of the Kais standing here. And you can tell too that like obviously Gohan in his assets looks a lot nicer than these guys do. These guys look a lot more akin to sprites for sure. Which I mean isn't too bad, I suppose, because I understand that especially for like this era they need to kind of cut corners somewhere. But this is a very nice shot too. This asset does look very high quality, even though the black lines are a little bit thicker. I will say I was always a little bit taken aback though how like weirdly this is cut. Like I almost feel like there should be more transition or like not as many cuts to just like the different characters. Again, maybe I haven't seen this scene in a bit, but every time I watch this it's so weird that it's like, okay, we're at Gohan and now we're at them, you know, and obviously they zoom in a little bit and now we're at Goku. I don't know, it's just very weird. I don't know. But I do like this shot of Goku. I do wish that there was a little bit more animation in between this. Because, like, Goku lifting up his hand, right? He's already sort of starting to lift it up. But then, like, this... it's a little janky. I ain't even going to front with you, right? It's a little bit janky. But the final result, I think, looks pretty good. Goku's chin looks enormous there. Maybe his face is just kind of far up his head. Yeah, so then we cut right back to Gohan here, and again, I don't know, it just feels like so many cuts, right? Like I don't really remember animations or like transformations specifically having this many cuts, right? Like it cuts to Gohan, and then instead of like zooming out like they did in the beginning, right, they just cut far away. I don't know, kind of feels like maybe they needed to rush this part, and like this was the one thing they didn't have finished, so they were just like, we're just gonna cut it up and then make it flow. I'm not sure. But this part looks really cool. Obviously, the teleportation, right, looks fantastic. I'm always impressed when they do stuff like this. I think they nailed this with the literally just like moving PNGs, basically, right? And obviously, the lines represent them teleporting away. Very, very nice job for sure. We have the white fade in and fade out, which is a very nice way to just do a simple transition here. We have Gohan and Kibito standing there as well. This is also a very nice shot of Gohan here too. I know this is a pretty iconic shot from this essay. It's weird that they cut off the top of his hair. I feel like they should move the camera up a little bit more. But this is a very nice shot, and again, it's also kind of weird because this is another shot in this transformation animation where it kind of just feels like people are standing there and they're not really doing much, right? But they're just talking, which, I mean, yes, it is the act of skill, I guess, but it's just so weird because I feel like there's just so many parts in this that's just like static poses, right? You have Gohan, right? Power up for this section. Sorry, I went back a little bit too far, right? You have Gohan power up, right? You have them standing there, and then you have Goku standing there, right? And then they're standing there, right? And then you have Gohan standing there again. I don't know. It's just not a lot of movement, and like it just feels very choppy to me. I'm not sure why. I don't think that the animation is necessarily bad. I just think that it's cut very strange. I do wish there's a little bit more animation on this too. I mean, weirdly enough, there's no like fade and it's pretty fluid, but every time I watch this, maybe it's just I'm blinking or something, but I always feel like he snaps his head really quick when it's in the full motion. But that's definitely a nitpick for sure. Yeah, again, why cut there? I feel like they could have just like zoomed in on him. And I don't know, but we have the little bang moving in the wind, and obviously Gohan moving his head a little bit. The clouds in the background moving too is a nice touch, because a lot of the time with the background, they kind of neglect that, and they literally just have like, you know, a solid background. Alright, so now we move on to the actual super attack. Again, it's just the cuts in this one, man. I don't know. So strange. But anyway, we have a transition. This is not actually part of his super attack, but this is just like a edit that they did for the like actual video of this animation. Alright, so we have Gohan standing here squaring up against Super Buu. I think that this shot is pretty cool. Obviously, even though they're using more like a sprite asset here, I think Gohan still looks very nice. I would almost prefer, again, I feel like if this was made in the modern day, these would look a lot more crisp, and they would have used a lot more like close-up animations, and they would have used a lot higher quality assets, but still definitely not bad. Now, we have the classic, you know, close-up shot of Gohan here. And here's the thing with this shot, right? The actual animation here is not too bad, right? It is just Gohan literally just smirking, right? And then getting ready to attack Buu with the card art, you know, standing there. It's kind of funny as well that the card art references, I believe it's supposed to be referencing like the first second of this, basically, where he's standing there facing off against Buu. At least that's what it looks like to me. But regardless, or in terms of like, I guess this essay maybe more like referencing the card art, because obviously the card art just references a panel from the manga or the anime. But his facial expression has always felt a little bit weird to me. I don't know. I feel like Gohan's face just doesn't look correct here. Like, I feel like this is like, granted, maybe a very good little kid at drawing, but I feel like this is a little kid's, like, I'm remembering what Gohan looked like on TV, and I'm drawing it for his face specifically, right? Like, I think the rest of this looks okay for the most part. His head maybe looks a little bit of a weird shape, but something about this face always kind of tripped me up with this animation. I think maybe it's a little bit too small and a little bit too far down his head, if I had to throw a dart at the dartboard and guess how, you know, why that makes me feel like that. But I would say, yeah, probably that. It's just so strange to me. I don't know. It just feels off. Let me know in the comments if you agree with me on that one for sure. But anyway, after transitioning into the card art here, which is a very nice card art. It's a shame we don't get to see it as much as the first one. We have a very cool, so this was the part that I was honestly the most hyped for. First of all, very subtle aura here. Very subtle with the white aura. We have the smoke effect sort of puff out from under his feet. And then, of course, they keep that smoke effect, but they have it sort of swirl around him, which is really cool. I definitely like that sort of emphasis that he's about to power up. Now, again, even though I really like this shot, and the sprite doesn't even look too bad here, which I know that's a first hearing that, they cut just directly to in front of him, already posed up. And this shot always just felt very jarring to me, especially watching this in full motion. I almost wonder if he would have been standing there in the regular pose that he was in for the beginning of this, and then they had to move into this pose, it would feel a little bit less jarring. But having it cut to him immediately being in this pose just always felt a little bit weird for me. So obviously we have Gohan get ready to fight Boo. Again, this is the part where I'm really gonna kind of nitpick a lot, because I feel like this part always bothered me, because there isn't a lot of animation in between these frames for a lot of these parts, right? Like this to this is pretty yucky, if I do say so myself. But like this is not bad, right? The rest of this where he turns his head around, you can also see, funny enough, they changed to a lot lower quality of an asset when they change his head. And it's kind of funny because his hair is all black here, and then they have this like white shading, and you can actually see an outline even though the hair is still all black. Very interesting detail. But yeah, like this section isn't that bad. Boogie, 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 boogie. Obviously in motion, right? This doesn't look too bad with him actually doing the final spin. And then we have the actual hit to the head, where it is a cut, but obviously it's sort of a jump cut to emphasize the punch. I think even in motion, I'm not really the biggest fan of it though. I still wish that there was a little bit more follow through, but I think that part is a little bit more excusable. Also, I just noticed this is really weird. How did they like intertwine this with his hair? That is so strange. Or did they just put it... Why, yeah, like, why is some of his hair behind the asset and some of it is in front? That's so trippy. Anyway, so this is another jump cut here, right? We have the jump cut from the punch to the kick. And granted, I don't mind this as much. It's cool that they actually even bothered including his other leg in there, because they definitely could have not with how long it's on the screen. But I like this kick, and I definitely like the concept of what they're going for here, right? Because obviously it's sort of emphasizing, like, you know, hey, Gohan's using all these different moves to take him down, and you're watching it from this very interesting perspective. But there's a couple things here. Again, going from this, right, with Gohan smacking Boo upside the head, immediately to this brown background is very jarring with just Gohan's foot in there. They're like... In the beginning of this essay, right, we talked about how there was the implied movement with the sword where they cut to the zoom in of the sword and they cut back out to Gohan, you know, now holding it up like the baseball bat. I feel like they were going for something like that here, but it just doesn't work as well. The other thing that's so strange about this animation is it looks like the bottom of his foot is going to make contact with him, and the way that the motion is happening, he's not swinging his leg, he's like kicking it forward, right? But then when they actually show where he is, it's his heel that's hitting Super Boo, right? And I think that the animation on Gohan looks nice here, right? His leg is moving a little bit. You can see that his hair is sort of fluttering in the direction that he's moving. But it's weird that they wouldn't focus on the heel here. Like, they almost kind of start with that, with the way that his foot is, and then they change it to, like, the flat bottom of his boot. So, I don't know. This movement does not equal this result. That's also something that really tripped me up about this animation when I saw it. Again, I like the concept, I just don't like the result. Now, we do have the follow-through, not really have a lot of animation in it either, and this is another section of this animation that really also trips me up when they just go from like this pose to now his leg is that far down, right? I really wish that there was some more frames in there, and you can see that, like, they have the ability to do it, because here they have his foot move back a little bit, you know, when he's obviously, like, recoiling it to put it back on the ground. So it's interesting to me that they did that big of a cut, right? And then we cut to a lot more of a low-quality essay. Wow, we went from 1080p to 144 real quick. This is literally just like a sprite, basically. You can see the lack of details on it. You can see the thicker black lines, and Gohan's eyes are also very strange here. I suppose this is only on screen for just a moment, basically. It's kind of funny how they don't even, like, really move it. They just sort of squish the image, right, to imply the movement. We obviously have Gohan lift his foot up, and then there are a couple of frames here, at least, at a little bit, excuse me, higher. That was the apple from the beginning of this video. They have a little bit of a higher quality asset actually move his leg up and kick Boo away, but it's still very strange that they cut a lot of the times in this animation from like pretty high quality to super low quality and then back to decent quality, right? We talked about that earlier in the animation as well. Very interesting. Then another jump cut, right? This is why I'm saying that this animation for me has always been super jarring, because again, there's just so many jump cuts in here, not just in the, you know, transformation as well, but I think it's even more apparent here. At least in the transformation, it feels a little bit more natural. But here, there's so many jumps that I just feel like it kind of takes me out of the immersion of this, you know. I do like this section, though. Obviously, having the bang move is really cool. I love the actual look of Gohan here, obviously moving up, winding up his arm to punch the enemy. And obviously, then the follow through. I think this cut is fine, right? If you want to emphasize the punch with cutting it to having him immediately be hitting the enemy, I think that that looks good, right? And even though this is a little bit of a lower quality asset, you're not really seeing this for too long, and you're more focusing on the enemy getting hit anyway, right? And plus the effect part. This is obviously a very iconic shot of this essay as well. Maybe not, because I guess I don't remember it as much, but I think it's just one of the best looking parts of this actual super attack, right? We obviously have Gohan moving towards the camera with the bang, and then we have the kick, right? Now, I feel like this part is a little bit less jarring, where you transition to his face, and then he's kicking forward. Maybe that transition is a little jarring, but going from his face to then him kicking forward, I feel like isn't as bad, because you're like, okay, he's moving forward to do something, and then it feels more natural when the kick finally arrives, right? As well, again, a little bit more of a lower quality asset, but definitely not too bad. And obviously, the way that they do this here is they literally just like spin the PNG basically and the camera to sort of imply the movement rather than having them actually move the asset here. Finally, we have Gohan fly forward in another jump cut here. Also, for some reason, that looked really strange in the beginning. Maybe it was just because it was so far away. But yeah, this is a very nice looking asset of Gohan. Again, though, I feel like his face looks kind of off here. Again, maybe his face is a little bit too small and a little bit too far down his face. Or his, like, I guess just the area that his face would be on. Very strange. But yeah, the zoom in definitely doesn't look too bad. But this is another really weird cut. I feel like I'm a broken record now. I'm sorry, guys, but it's just the truth. It goes from him zooming in, which you'd be like, okay, he's gonna like punch or something, or maybe you're gonna see like a first-person view, and then they cut to him in the sky grabbing Boo's foot. I don't know, it just feels really weird. Granted, I do like, again, this section too, where they actually have him grab the sprite. Granted, because the sprites are so stinky, the scaling here is really weird, because obviously Super Boo especially is not this small compared to Gohan here. But I do like what they go for, and again, I feel like Gohan's face looks a little bit off here. I don't know, just looks a little bit strange to me. But I like this, and even though you get a face full of the stinky sprite, again, I really like what they do here with the implied movement. Obviously, they literally just have the asset go from up to down, right? But obviously, you think that it moved all the way through behind Boo because he covers the screen, right? That's a really cool thing that they did in this. I like that a lot. So yeah, obviously we then have Gohan throwing him towards the ground with Boo finally colliding with the earth below. This cut is fine, right? Because this is still like in the same scene and still in like the same part of the fight, right? So I think that this cut isn't as bad here from this to this. Interesting that they have this one frame of him very close up to the camera and then they move it away. I feel like they could have just had him here instead, but interesting. Regardless, though, we have him with his arms back ready to do the Kamehameha. Again, on all of this, I do wish that there was a little bit more movement. Or I guess it's the Masenko here, technically. Or, well, maybe not the Masenko because it's not over his head. I don't know. Yellow Kamehameha, I guess. But, obviously, we have just this to this, right? And then when he actually launches it forward, that's fine that they have it go from back to front. But I wish this to this wasn't just one. They could have it like here to then throwing his hands forward. And this part, I think, then going to his hands forward is just fine. But I wish there was a little bit more in between. Though, I will say, I do quite like this yellow glow that they have on Gohan here. Very nice touch. Obviously, this is sort of you getting enveloped by the Ki Blast. I like that look a lot, and I like it when they do that for the super attacks. You can even see a little bit of a yellow glow on Gohan here, too, which is a very nice touch to sort of emphasize the Ki Blast. This is just a circle asset and then a line asset to make the beam, but I don't think it's too bad, and at least with the beam in the second half of its showing, we obviously have a little bit of movement on the sides to make it feel a little bit more animated, so that's pretty cool. And then obviously we have it explode and hit the enemy with kind of just some generic explosion effects, to be honest, but at least the small effects throughout the end of it are cool, like the sort of debris flying here, right? Flying directly past the screen. We have these rocks here. That part is pretty cool. It's just the beginning of the explosion that's kind of just like, eh. But that is going to do it for today's video. Wow, I did not think that this one would take this long, but obviously with doing this unit as well, you know, it took a little bit longer. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Definitely let me know what you think of this unit's animations in the comments section below. I would love to hear what you have to say. Overall, I still like this guy's animations. Personally, I don't think he's my favorite in the game. I don't think his animations have really ever been my, like, top 10 favorite animations in the game. I don't think he's bad by any means, right? I definitely think that there are a bunch of things in here, though, that definitely show their age in terms of the super attack. But the super attack does do a lot of cool things. Obviously, even though I'm not a big fan of all the jump cuts in here, right? I definitely like the parts where they did the implied movement. And I think for me, definitely the, you know, like Supreme Kai uniform Gohan is definitely my favorite part of this super attack. But I would love to see a updated version of this in a modern day, like LR or TUR or something like that, right? I think that that would be really cool to see. I mean, we are still apparently going to get an Ultimate Gohan from the LR selection at some point, so we'll see when that ends up happening. But regardless, thank you guys so much for watching. Again, if you enjoyed, like and subscribe. I'm trying to get this channel up, and I appreciate all the support that you guys have given so far. It has been fantastic. I will catch you guys in the next one. Dokkan Assets out. Peace.